Sounds like a yes. Okay, so I'm going to, and we also are going to introduce each of the candidates with a short bio. So I'm introducing Gavin. Born and raised in Claremont, Florida, Gavin Brown is an experienced operative of numerous presidential, state, and local government campaigns, including contributions to both the Biden-Harris victory and the two razor-thin victories in Georgia for U.S. Senators Warnock and Ossoff. Gavin's run for Congress comes after a 13-year stint at Roundabout Theater Company in New York City, which is the largest nonprofit theater company in the United States, where he served as audience services director. In this role, he managed subscription services, marketing, and fundraising, and oversaw a $50 million budget and workforce of 20 people. His priority is supporting communities, particularly vulnerable or underrepresented communities, such as the LGBTQ community or underserved communities struggling with poverty. And with that, I'll hand it over to Gavin. And then, is there a blue light on your mic on the top? Hold on. Yeah, switch it on. There we go. And to the candidates, you can stand up if you would like or sit. That's fine too. All right, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. It shows that you care about this race. You care about winning it, because I know we're all sick of losing these races. Again, my name's Gavin Brown. I'm running for CD 15. So why am I running? I'm running because I believe we need fresh, new, energetic leadership. And I hear that all across the district. People on both sides of the aisle want young, qualified candidates to go up there and get something done. Because I am sick of it, and I know a lot of you are, of hearing people on both sides of the aisle just shouting at each other and getting nothing done. But how do we do that? Because we need to put up people who are qualified candidates who have winning track records of winning doable races, like she said when she introduced me. So I worked the Biden-Harris victory in Georgia. Thank the Lord we pulled that one out, let's just say. But a lot of people doubted that we'd be able to do it. We did that, but we did it because we organized, we went door to door, we worked our tails off, 18, 19 hours a day, and we pulled that off. And then I wanted to have a little bit of vacation. They wouldn't let me. So then I worked the 2 Senate races. They counted us out on those 2 as well. So what did we do? The same thing that Stacey Abrams told us to do, and we pulled both of those races out. But it didn't happen overnight. And a lot of times we as Democrats are guilty of taking races for granted until it's too late. Yesterday, I was in Polk County, touring through brown and black neighborhoods going door. And today I was in Temple Terrace knocking on doors. And the one thing that I heard that really stood out to me was that they said that I was the first candidate to come to their door in general. Now that's a problem, because, and I told him that, I said, sir, isn't that an issue? And he said, yeah, we feel that we're being taken for granted unless somebody's up for election or re-election and they want that vote. So again, this is a problem we have in the party, but we need new leadership in the party to lead the way for change. And I think that this country, we saw what happened in Kansas this week with women being under attack. And you know what? Women organized, the Democrats organized, and we got a double-digit win in deep red Kansas to protect a woman's right to choose. So it's doable, but we have to do it together and we have to be united. And while women are under attack, we all know what happened with Roe. This is only the beginning. If you think it can't get worse than this, where we are with women under attack, LGBTQ rights under attack, I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Hillsborough County LGBTQ caucus. And I most recently was protesting at the Moms for Liberty. And I had my megaphone because I wanted to make sure they heard me across the street. And I let them know they're not Moms for Liberty. Lady Liberty doesn't stand for what those moms stand for. So I made it loud and clear. that I've renamed them, the Moms Against Liberty, and they need to hear us loud and clear. And so to win, we need those winnable candidates that have the background. I've worked in DC. I've crafted legislation. I've worked with both parties to get legislation passed and something done. But we don't get that way by shouting at each other. We've been doing that for far too long. We need a candidate that can work in the middle, who has the experience, that can win, because this seat is important. We cannot afford to lose the House. We know what Republicans will do if we lose the House. Even if we control the Senate, that's null and void, because if we lose the House, nothing will get passed up to the Senate that will benefit any of us in this room. So we need that winnable candidate. I am that winnable candidate that will take that fight. I'm not one to back down. And Republicans don't play fair and they don't play nice. I know from experience on that one. And so we need somebody who will not back down, who will take them down. I am that candidate. Now, when we talk about what my first order of business will be when I'm elected, the first piece of legislation, because women's rights, like I said, are under attack, my first order of business is to meet with my fellow freshmen that got elected. We will get together and work on a compromise bill where we will make sure that women's feminine products and contraceptives are available for free in possibility. This is a bypass part of that Roe disaster. It's not going to codify the whole thing, but it's something. And then we are going to work off of that and continue to protect women's rights. Now, I'm a man, but we need more men to step up for women, to step up for their mothers, their grandmothers, what they fought for their daughters, their future granddaughters. So that is very important. And so those are the issues that we can be talking about. And our younger people are fired up around this district, especially. And I was at USF recently, and I went there maybe before the Roe decision came down at an event, and it was a women's event, and there were maybe 30 students that showed up. After that Roe decision, it was close to 200 that showed up. So that tells you it's a sad state of affairs that it takes that to fire up people, but sometimes it takes that. Like with the LGBTQ movement, we saw what happened with Stonewall, the Stonewall riots. We don't get anywhere by staying silent. We have to be loud, and we cannot back down. But we need candidates that are not scared to do so. I am that candidate. And then fourthly, I'll just say, in terms of when I am elected, that the first committee that would be my priority is the Select Committee on Climate Crisis. This is a huge issue. It is particularly for me, I'm a rancher, so I know the effects that agriculture and the environment have from climate crisis. We see wildfires are getting worse, hurricanes, tornadoes, glaciers are dropping. And we have to send people to DC that, I don't know, believe in science, that it's not fake, and that this is a real crisis that we cannot leave to future generations. And if we don't start something now, we will be so far behind, it's only going to get worse. But again, that's why we need a candidate that can go to DC day one, not need training wheels, have been there, and get to work on day one. And that's why I am your candidate. So in closing with y'all, I just want to leave you with this. I was recently at the Pulse Memorial, and there was a woman there that she had a golden retriever dog with a pink tutu on. And I grew up with Golden, so I had to go over and pet the dog, obviously. And I said, what a cute dog. And she said, it was my son's. And I said, and she pointed at the wall. And then she said, I liked your speech and I believe in you. And I want to give you something. He used to make handmade jewelry. They handed it out. And she said, I want to give you this. Gave me that. It was on him when she collected him from the hospital. Now, you all know I tried to keep it together as much as I could, but those are the stories and the people that are suffering out there, and they are looking for leadership, and they're looking for candidates that care, that can fight and get something done. So please go to my website, gavinbrownforcongress.com, bet on Brown, because I won't let you down. Well, thank you. Thank you. Fred.
I'm not gonna be that cute.
You're cute enough.
So that phone, that was the timekeeper's phone. So we're going to excuse it, you know. Next we have Bill Van Horn, and Renee is going to introduce him.
Thank you. Bill Van Horn is married to his lovely wife Kathy of 27 years. They have 7 children, the last 3 being adopted special needs children. Bill served in the U.S. Navy for 4 years, specializing in communications. He worked in an aerospace business before accepting a job in the U.S. Postal Service. Bill worked for the Postal Service for 30 years before retiring. For 21 of his 30 years with the Postal Service, he served as a union representative. During his last 11 years, he served as vice president of his National Association of Letter Carriers branch. Bill was trained as an arbitration advocate in dispute resolution and how to build consensus between different points of view to achieve common goals. All exceptionally good qualities for someone entering the political world in this serious time of polarization. I give you Bill Van Horn.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Jennifer, Keith, and the club for putting this together. I will start with the 4 questions. And I wrote them down because I had to have her send them to me the second time. I'm running for Congress because, as Gavin, only older, I'm sick and tired of the nonsense going on in Washington, D.C. I'm also sick and tired of nonsense that's going on within our party. Okay, our party needs to come together before we can bring Congress together. Okay, you got too many people on the extreme left. I'm more of a moderate Democrat. I can see the problem like the left does. What they want to do is they want to just go solve the problem. Unfortunately, there's steps you have to take. A baby isn't born and jumps up and runs out the nursery, the first day. There are steps, and there's steps we need to take, and we need a person to bring up our party first together. How am I going to defeat the Republican opponent? I figured the best way for me to do that was to put a face to it. And I like to put Jackie Toledo's face to it. Because first off, I think she's going to win the nomination. Laura Lee's raising a lot of money, good for her. She's another fun one to run against. To run against Jackie Toledo or wannabe Ron DeSantis, everything I believe in, everything we believe in here is 180 degrees out from what they believe in. Okay. I believe in the First Amendment, which one of the parts is freedom of speech. And if I want to sit any place as a 6 or 8-year-old kid and say I'm gay, I don't really care what the bill says. It was amazing. Recently, I was watching Anderson Cooper because a lot of times I watch CNN, and he was talking to a guy. I don't remember the guest he had, but he said, at 6 or 7, I thought I was gay. Okay. I knew there was something wrong, or not wrong. Excuse me, bad choice of word. I knew I was something different with me. Now, can you imagine a kid in this day and age, 6 or 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, and he feels something's different inside? He can't go. He might be concerned to talk to his parents, but he can't talk to his teacher because she can't say gay. Anti-voting. I could go on and on. I did go on and on. I made a list of that, but I would highlight the freedoms that the Democrats have to offer. Okay, the freedom of speech, the freedom to vote, and not just a woman's freedom of choice, but I want to go to Congress and work for equal rights for women. It's not just a choice. You can have two people identical in education and business experience, a male and a female, and they both get hired in the same firm. And as the commercial said, the man said, oh yeah, but I make $18,000 a year more than her. Now that's a discrimination that we don't hear about much. But that's absurd. What would my first priority be during the first week of Congress? Similar to what Gavin said. We're not supposed to mention candidates, but that's tough. What I was list of the most moderate Democrats and the moderate Republicans. See what state and city they're from, what they ran on, and see if there's any commonality I could build with these 40 people. So when it is time to put legislation forward, I would have a foundation to work from. Okay? And the congressional committee that I would most like to serve, and now it's a tie, I'm sorry. I'll just give you the one, it's oversight and reform. Okay, oversight and reform. A little bit of a selfish reason, government reform has got a subcommittee on the Postal Service. And I'm so sick and tired of Republicans and people who don't know what the hell they're doing about the Postal Service, introduce legislation that's going to adversely affect the Postal Service, which adversely affects every single person in this country, from the senior citizens to the disabled vets, would get their medicine, their appointment, whatever the case may be. But also oversight, watching over the rules and procedures of Congress and the other committees, okay? Few things I want to talk about. Timekeeper ain't waving yet. I lost my thing. One of the things I want to work on is a segment of our society gets unduly punished, and that's senior citizens. Okay, now we all know Rick Scott's looking at some plan to redo or get rid of Social Security and Medicare. I trust him. Anybody who can take the Fifth Amendment 73 times, I don't trust a whole lot. Man should still be behind bars. I want to expand Social Security cover starting at age 60. I want to do away with the minimum retirement age, because if you retire at 65 and your minimum retirement age is probably 67 or close to it. I don't know what it is now. You work, you should be able to work with how much money you want without fear of being penalized. But they have a cap. You make over their cap, you have to pay $1 for every 2 over the cap you make. And that's insane. You're punishing them, people. They may feel energetic like me and want to work until they fall down. And nobody should tell them what they can do with their life. It's also want to make sure there's a 3% minimum cost of living increase every January. The 0.8 to 1.0 gets killed with Part D, Part B raises. It's making a minimum of 3%. And I think I could pay for most, if not all of this bill by raising the cutoff point for when you pay Social Security out of your check. The cap this year is $147,500. If anybody is in this room that makes over that, first, contribute to my campaign. Second, I'm going to increase it. I want to increase it by $22,000 a year over a period of 4 years. So at the end of the 4 years, that cap would be approximately $230,000, coincidentally enough, the salary of the Senate Majority Leader, the highest paid elected official in Congress. We elect them, we pay Social Security, they should too on everything they make. As I said before, I want to create a new revenue stream, okay? Because college kids, especially in low-income neighborhoods, minority districts that are Title I schools, might not have the opportunity to get a Pell Grant. Oh, the timekeeper's staring at the clock. What I want to do is I want to pass a law that was passed this year in the House about legalizing marijuana nationwide. But I want to get it passed through the House, get some cooperation in the Senate, get it passed in the Senate. See, they passed marijuana anyway. You know, we got to pass this law and then work on the governors in the states so that the federal tax that we make off the sale of marijuana could go into a special education fund. Well, the 18 states that are legalized now and anybody else that comes on board, make a special you take 50% of that fund, scholarships, low income, whatever. They can apply for FAFSA like everybody else does, but it's additional funding. Might not cover it, you got another fund to dip into. Take 25% yearly and pay off college school debt, school loans. Okay? Now, I always thought I'd be against that because my daughter's 45 and she's still paying back a school loan. But then once again, we don't want to penalize the senior citizens. Why should we punish the young kids? Well, how could they start off an insurmountable debt? It's incredible, and it's not right. Something else I want to work on that you'll never hear about a politician speak about is the appropriations bill. You remember 4 or 5 years ago in Donald Trump's presidency, the appropriations bill was late. They were marking it up in the borders and the columns and writing above words and stuff, and they voted on that piece of garbage. How would anybody know it's in a 2,000-page report if everybody's scribbling and adding things? I'm going to introduce whether it be a rule that needed to be done in the House or legislation to say that once appropriation is done, every member of Congress has a minimum of 14 days to review it. Because if I'm spending your money, don't you want me to know where it's going? Of course you do. I'm not going to just read earmarks out here and here and here and have arrows going down to here. It's ludicrous. We need a government that finally works for us. The young guys, the old guys, and every last minute. That's 30 seconds. I think the reason everybody up here believes they're good for the job, and I'll tell you why. I have fought in the ditches of the Postal Service as an appointed elected union official for 21 years, and I've been up against Jackie Toledo's and Laura Elise for my entire life in the Postal Service. And what did I do with them? I left them in my wake. Just like I want to do November 8th, leave them all in my wake, go to Congress to represent every last person in this room, in this district, in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. The torch is yours, sir.
You mean the torch is passed?
What?
Torch is passed?
The torch is passed, sir.
All right, we're going to hand it over to Michael to introduce Alan.
Sure.
Thank you. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Alan Cohn and his lovely wife, Patty. Alan Cohn is a Peabody Award-winning journalist and was the 2020 Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in Florida's 15th Congressional District. Before running for Congress, he was the anchor, managing editor of ABC News at 7 p.m., which takes an in-depth investigative look at hot issues of the day. For over 30 years, Alan has been speaking truth to power, whether it's taking on corporations, making defective equipment for the military, exposing criminals and corrupt politicians, crusading for consumer rights, and standing up for veterans. Alan earned the reputation as one of the most respected and investigative reporters in the nation. He's a graduate of Hofstra University and a 2011 graduate of the FBI Citizens Academy. Alan and his wife, Patricia, who in her own right is a Democrat power in the county, live in Tampa, Florida, and have 2 children, Ann and Aaron, and pets probably too.
A couple of new arrivals too.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, well, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting us here tonight. And before I start, I really want to just make a comment about today's events involving Andrew Warren. Number one, I'm incredibly proud that one of my first endorsements in this race was Andrew Warren. And I think we saw today with the governor's actions, just what is at stake in this election. It's our government itself. I'm Alan Cohn. My wife and I, Patty and I, have lived in North Tampa for over 12 years. And we have 2 kids, Ann and Aaron, who graduated from Wharton High School. Our daughter, Ann, is a legal assistant in Tampa. And my son, we're very proud to always say, is a pitcher for the Oakland A's. We have been part of the fabric of this community for over a decade. From the ball fields to civic life, as we mentioned, Patty is the president of the Democratic Women's Club of Hillsborough County. And if my face is familiar to you here today or who you watching online, it's because I was the chief investigative reporter at ABC Action News. And some of you might remember that I uncovered the biggest case of political corruption in Hillsborough County in the last decade when I found out that a sitting county commissioner took $500,000 from a businessman to buy a vacation home. I'm the guy who busted a fake Marine who had been parading around this area in full Marine Corps uniform wearing the Navy Cross, and it turned out he never served a day in the military. I'm the guy who confronted a drug dealer selling synthetic marijuana to our children. And I was the guy who busted a local business for charging fees to elderly veterans to file Veterans Administration claims. And I actually worked with a Republican Congressman, Gus Bilirakis, to change the federal law, to put teeth into it so it wouldn't happen again. I'm the reporter who won journalism's top honor, the Peabody Award, for uncovering that one of the largest defense contractors in the United States was allowing defective parts to get on board Black Hawk helicopters flown by our servicemen and women. That was a 3-year investigation. I went to MIT to find experts to tell me whether I was on the right trail with all the documents that I was uncovering. And I pushed and pushed until the Defense Department cracked down on Sikorsky aircraft, and countless lives were undoubtedly saved. It is why I think I'm the perfect guy to sit on the Committee of Oversight or Armed Services, because after all, that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. And even over the last year, in civilian life, I worked in the private sector to lead a public pressure campaign to get Afghan refugees out of Afghanistan and to the US so they can be safe. I actually got 12 US senators to demand the president appoint someone to oversee this, and the president did. It's those skills and my television experience delivering messaging and being an advocate for the people, which are just some of the reasons why last week the Tampa Bay Times endorsed me for Congress. It's why Andrew Warren endorsed me for Congress. It's why Kathy Castor, who has represented this community so well for so long, has endorsed me for Congress. It's the reason why Charlie Crist has endorsed me for Congress, and most of the other members of the Democratic Congressional Caucus from Florida, and even from California, Adam Schiff, who has basically been the Democrat in Congress who has been leading the effort for good government and bringing Trump to justice, has endorsed our campaign for Congress. These leaders, and I don't say this to boast, I say this because these leaders and organizations think that I have the best chance to win this seat. And I left out one important part of it: our friends in organized labor. I've been a labor union member since I was 19 years old. I'm endorsed now by the Teamsters, the Communication Workers of America, the plumbers and pipe fitters, and the operating engineers. You know what? We should be excited about winning this seat. You know, this is a new congressional seat that neither Ron DeSantis or Rick Scott even got 50% of the vote. And I am the candidate who could attract Democrats and even independents who watched me on the news, taking on Republicans and Democrats for the public good. In an age when we are all skeptical about politics and politicians and government, I'm the one who has stand out for many years, calling it out and speaking truth to power. I don't have to remind you what is on the line here. I am the husband and the dad of 2 strong women who today have fewer rights than they did 1 month ago. And Congress does need to codify a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions. And Congress can only do that if we have a majority in the House and the Senate and the president to sign it. Our democracy and our very form of government is on the line. As I wrote last October in the Tampa Bay Times, this is a moment that history will remember. It's the moment when the United States gave it itself a chance to continue its 245-year tradition in the effort to form a more perfect union, or it's the end. We have an incredible opportunity, and think about it. For the first time, North Tampa can elect a resident of North Tampa to represent them in the United States Congress. So tonight, I am here to ask for your help. I'm here to ask for your support. And most importantly, I'm here to ask for your vote. Thank you.
I'm echoing again.
Excuse me, another technical difficulty.
Yes, it was distracting. I turned it off. Yes.
Hello there. Thanks, Jen. I'm here to introduce Eddie Geller, and it's a pleasure to have all five of you here. But I'm introducing Eddie Geller. He is an activist, millennial, and former comedian who's been working to get Democrats elected up and down the ticket for the last decade. As a director of video for Priorities USA in 2018, he led a team that helped take back the House by electing the most racially diverse and most female group of representatives ever. Prior to that, he served as director of video at the DNC in 2016, where he worked closely with DNC Vice Chair Keith Ellison. Additionally, Eddie produced viral videos for Upworthy, MoveOn.org, and Robert Reich's Inequality Media. A native of Clearwater, Eddie graduated from the University of Florida, Go Gators, on a Bright Future Scholarship and went on and performed stand-up Congress who are ready to stand up and meet the moment. Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. So happy to be here. I'm Eddie Geller, activist, millennial, former comedian, running for Congress here in this 15th district. So I want to talk to everyone tonight about a burning question, and it's not necessarily one of the four questions, but we'll get there. It's why launch my campaign with a parody of a 90s sitcom jingle? Now, if you haven't seen it, you can go to eddiegeller.com and check it out there. It's fun, it's cute, it's unusual, it's unconventional, and a bit unexpected. So I'm going to give you three reasons why I did it that way: authenticity, creativity, and electability. Authenticity. The candidate who launched their campaign with a jingle is the same kid who grew up in Clearwater, Florida, across the bay. I was the chubby kid who realized that a sense of humor was the way to make friends and not get bullied. I was bar mitzvahed at Temple B'nai Israel when I was 13, but I like to think I was baptized at Coconuts Comedy Club in St. Petersburg. At the University of Florida, I fell in love with improv comedy. Improv teaches you, like few other art forms, how to listen, how to be present, and how to collaborate, which I think are essential skills for a congressional representative. I moved to Los Angeles after college to pursue acting and comedy. And if you recognize my face, it's because I had a stunning part in a Best Buy commercial in 2010, which you might have seen if you were watching the Stanley Cup Finals around then. But jokes aside, I did get my SAG card, and I am still a proud union member. Comedy has always been my voice, my art, and the lens through which I see the world. And that's how I came into activism. It was back in 2011 when I realized how to combine these worlds of comedy and politics. It was Elizabeth Warren's Senate run. She made a video to announce her campaign, and I made a loving parody of it. And in that video, there is an Elizabeth Warren impersonator who's chugging a Coors Light and saying, "I'll fix this shit myself." I went on to work at Upworthy and the Democratic National Committee in 2016. I was there during all the drama. Yes, my emails were hacked by Russia. I have been told my emails are boring, which is hurtful as a creative, and I am still not over it. I worked as the director of Video at Priorities USA in 2018. We spent a $50 million budget to help win back the House. We tested over 100 videos, and what we found out is that creativity works. Creativity wins. And that's number two for why I launched with a jingle. Creativity. That is woven into the DNA of this campaign. To be brave enough to do things differently and creatively. There is a conventional wisdom that in a purple district like this, you have to run a very safe and vanilla campaign, that you have to ask the DCCC for permission about what issues you're going to talk about and what you're going to wear in your headshots. And what you end up with is a campaign that looks like it's grown in a laboratory in Washington, D.C. I promise you there are no beakers or petri dishes at our campaign office, but we do believe in science. Doing things differently means leaning more into who we are and not trying to follow a poll-tested idea of what we think a middle-of-the-road Democrat is supposed to look like. I think we're going to win by getting our base excited about talking about universal health care and enshrining the right to choose into law. Let's get those USF students excited by talking about tackling student debt and fighting the climate crisis. Let's show LGBT voters that we're going to fight to enshrine marriage equality into law and fight back against attacks on the trans community. And we can talk to independent voters about an economy that works for everyone and stopping out corruption in DC. Because I promise you, independent voters care about clean water, good jobs, and affordable health care. But we have to be brave enough to communicate in ways that haven't been done before, that are done creatively. We have a choice about where this party is going to go. The average age of Democrats in the House is 61, and there is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being 61. There is nothing wrong with being 61. However, there is something wrong when the people with the most at stake in the future of this country are some of the least represented in Washington, D.C. So I am here to bring some new voices and some new leadership to Washington, D.C. Number 3 is electability. This is how we're going to beat the Republicans. This Republican Party is off the rails. They are steering us towards an authoritarian dystopia, a dystopia where women have less rights than they did 2 months ago, a dystopia where we cannot go a week without hearing about another mass shooting, a dystopia where trans people can't exist, Black history is forbidden, and elections are assumed stolen if won by a Democrat. Does this sound depressing to anyone? Yes. If their weapon is fear and anger and hopelessness, I'm coming armed with joy and optimism and a bit of creativity. This fight is hard. And if we want people to join us, we need to bring people into this process who've never come into this process before. And we have to be inviting, and we got to find new ways to bring them in. We are never going to beat the Republicans by being meaner or trying to be nice or trying to give them facts. It just doesn't work. For as awful and cruel as they govern, though, they still win. And they do it by finding wedge issues to win the attention war. Because remember, we are not just up against one Republican on November 8th. We are up against Fox News, social media algorithms that favor engagement over facts, right-wing podcasts, talk radio. TikTok and YouTube are swarming with right-wing conspiracy theories. And in Spanish language media, it's even more unchecked. We have to get creative, and we have to do it fast. So why a jingle? Authenticity, creativity, electability. That's how we're going to win. So we're going to win this 15th district. So do I have any proof that this will work? Our campaign has been able to raise over $500,000 so far. from over 5,000 donations in every state and in DC, which should be a state. That is more than anyone on this stage combined. And I will boast about it. I am proud of that because it's not just about hard work. It's about people also finding a new vision that they are connecting with. It is more than just a number on an FEC report, but it is also the resources to fight these Republicans. At the top, Jen mentioned, at the top, I had you as my introducer, but I'll just quickly repeat my endorsements. The Democratic Progressive Caucus, the Florida Disability Caucus, the Florida College Democrats, the Muslims for Fairness and Democracy PAC, also the Honorable Sean Shaw, Representative Andrew Learned, and just this week, we're coming out with an announcement that Representative Ana Escamani is endorsing our campaign, which we are very proud of. I am the only Democrat on this stage who's been registered in this race with the FEC since last year. I jumped into this race after a coup on our nation's capital, something none of us thought we would ever see. So when I saw Scott Franklin, the current representative of this 15th district, embrace the big lie and vote to overturn the election, I decided to step up. Because if you voted to overturn our elections, you have no place in Congress. Now, Scott Franklin's going to be able to keep his seat, but the next best thing is to be able to flip this new 15. I did not get into this race because more favorable lines were drawn or I saw an opportunity. What I saw was a need to meet this moment, because at this moment, democracy is hanging on by a thread. So if you want to join us, we need your help. You can head to eddiegeller.com, chip in a few bucks, but we can get you a yard sign, a placard. I believe they're in the back. You can sign up to do texts, say, make some calls, knock some doors. Early voting here in Hillsborough starts next week, and this primary election is on August 23rd, less than 3 weeks away. So thank you so much. I'm Eddie Geller. I am the best Democrat on this stage to win this general election and represent this 15th district. So I'm asking for your vote in this primary. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to answering some questions in a bit.
Excuse me, Jennifer, I have a question before you go on to Susan. I apologize, sir. When a candidate feel attacked, do we have any recourse like they do in normal debates?
I would like to remind you, this is not a debate.
As well, other candidates, okay, I understand it's not, I said as in debates. I was just asking if we had recourse. And if
No,
not,
this
that's-
is not a debate.
I didn't
You
say
had
it
10
was.
minutes. Each candidate gets 10 minutes. All right. Last but not least, we have Caesar and we have Dory, who's going to introduce him.
Hello. I would like to introduce you to Cesar Ramirez. Cesar is a proud American and a third-generation veteran. After serving in the U.S. Army, Cesar went back to school to be the first in his family to graduate from college, earning a bachelor's in management and a master's degree in business administration. Cesar has been politically engaged for the past years, 8 of which were here in Florida. He has 20 plus years of finance banking operations experience, 10 of which would have been spent as the financial crime investigator. Cesar is a proud husband to his beautiful wife and a devoted father to his 2 daughters. His oldest daughter is currently attending Columbia College in Chicago, studying film, and his youngest attends 3rd grade at Wagner Elementary in Polk County. I'm looking forward to hearing from Cesar Ramirez.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm gonna stand up, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna take out my jacket because it's a little warm in here with all this good competition. I'm good at projecting. It's okay. So buenas noches, hello, shalom, assalamu alaikum, ni hao, mabuhay. I'm trying to learn as many languages as I can as I walk through all the different communities in District 15. And I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of the folks that live in this community. Now, I've been living in Florida since 1999. I've lived, I believe every single address that I've had has been in District 15. I also grew up in the poorest congressional district in the United States, in the South Bronx, ironically, District 15. Tell me if that's not an omen or not. But before I go on, I want to take this opportunity to first do two things. One, way to go, Kansas. Way to go, Kansas. And if anything that we can learn from that experience is that there are certain issues that's not partisan, and we can build that against to vote for good Democratic candidates. Okay, let's keep that in mind. The second thing that I want to say is, and I say this with confidence and with pride, that the next congressman of District 15 is in this room. Okay, and whoever wins that election on August 24th, and if it's not me, I will be standing right next to them, supporting them, getting the Hispanic and the Black community to vote. And I think that this committee, this district will do well when we get everyone to come out and elect the right candidate. Now, why am I running? I'm running because I was asked. There's two reasons why really I'm running. One, I'm running because my community came to me and said, Caesar, for the past 10 years, you've been working really hard with the Democratic Party of Florida, finding the right candidates to run. Candidate is you. We want you to run. I didn't think when I woke up that morning that I was going to do this. And it took a lot of time before I got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for my community. And here's the second reason why. My community asked me because I'm just like them. I am a father to two daughters, one of them of 9. My other one is 20 years old, but I remember she went from a little girl to a little woman at 10. I am happy that she didn't have to go through what that 10-year-old girl went through. And if government was going to tell me that I had to take my baby and put her through the agony of childbirth, a baby giving a baby, this is the reason why I'm running, because I felt that as a father. You know, I visit a lot of churches since I decided to jump into this race. And I had a well-rehearsed speech, my stomping speech, right? The speech that I gave everywhere I went. One lady got up and she says, wow, that was well-rehearsed, like every other politician. I made it to that pastor, to that congregation, myself, to my family, that I was no longer going to do that, that I was going to speak from the heart. I do have bullet points. And by the way, I'm 50, not 61. You look at me. But honestly, I'm running because my daughter doesn't have the same rights as her mom did. And if my daughter, God forbid, something like that happened, I wouldn't want government to interfere and tell me that we cannot make this decision ourselves. I'm running for also veterans. I'm a 3rd-generation veteran. That bill that got squashed by the GOP about the burn pits, even though something got done, why was it even a debate? Why was there? My father served in Vietnam. My father died of cancer. He was Agent Orange exposed. His cancer was related. It took me, from the moment he was diagnosed, a year and a half to finally get the VA to provide benefits. A week later, he died. Firsthand experience why I'm running for Congress. Joined the military to honor my father and to honor my country. When those soldiers come back, we should be honoring them. Bottom line. So when I speak of firm is because I'm a dad. I'm a veteran. I am your neighbor that you see at the grocery store. I'm running because my community asked me to run because I am one of them who lived in this community for 23 plus years. I am running because it's time we had a voice from this community to represent us in Washington, D.C., that has experienced the things that we've experienced in this community. That's why I am running. I know what it's like to be hungry and not have the means to do anything about it that day. I know what it feels like to make a decision whether I'm going to make my car payment or my rent. And I know what that decision is like because I know what it is to have a car repoed because you had to make a decision of buying groceries to support your kid. I know what it is to walk 3 miles to work and 3 miles back so I could support my family. I left New York because New York is a really stressful place to live. And I was an evening administrator at NYU Downtown Hospital. Back then it used to be called Beekman Hospital when the first bombing of the Trade Center, the van hit. I slept in a gurney for 2 weeks, not allowed to go home because of all the patients we had to take care of. When that was all over, I realized that I needed to be better and make a difference. And I wanted to go back to school. I just had a high school diploma back then. So I came to Florida and I realized I couldn't afford to go to school. So I went from making $65,000 a year in New York to making $10 an hour as an assistant manager at Target right here in Fletcher. Then I finally got my job that offered tuition reimbursement. And let me tell you, I did not waste any time in taking advantage. I got my degree, my bachelor's degree here, my MBA here, and I'm living a better life to provide for my family, but it was not easy. And that's what people want in a candidate, somebody who has experienced tough times and know how to persevere and know how to fight. I know how to fight. I've been involved in politics since I was a little kid in New York, yelling at mayors. I remember on the steps of City Hall when they were about to shut down a program that I was involved with an agency called Aspida of New York. And it was a program called Project Leyes, which is Leyes in English is law, but it's an acronym, Legal Education Youth Empowerment Services, funded by the city of New York. They were playing political games and they were going to take away the funding for that. So I waited in front of City Hall steps till the mayor came down, Democratic mayor at that. When he came down, Mayor Dinkins, I said, Mayor Dinkins, I hope you plan on sleeping well tonight because tomorrow I'm going to be in the street because you're taking away my program. He said to me, young man, when you learn manners and learn how to speak to adults, you could come back and talk to me because I embarrassed him. There was cameras there in the news. And guess what? The next day, I went back to that organization. The mayor was there, $150,000 check he gave to the program and saved the program for at least another 2 years. I was 16 years old. So very quickly, I know I went off a little bit on this, but my first priority is to do recon, to know who the players are and know what are the important issues. Because I believe that's important. Because I believe also to gather the support, because the first domino is voter protection. And I believe everything else would do well if we protect all of our folks' right to vote. Equality, Roe v. Wade, everything codified, everything done, because we need new leaders. And we need to be able to make sure that our folks can get out to vote. I'm happy to say that many of you agree that one of the committees we want to serve is oversight and reform. I do oversight for my company. I work for a Fortune 500 company. I have a portfolio of over $2 billion. And what I do is provide oversight all over the world, mostly in Latin America, in North America, and Canada. Oversight, one of my main reasons for oversight is that I'm tired of the Supreme Court judges going under oath in their hearings and saying, I won't do this, I won't do this, I won't do this. They should be held to a higher standard to be charged with perjury if they're going to lie like that and say they're not going to do it and then get a life appointment and then do the complete opposite. So again, I'm Cesar Ramirez. My time is up. I'm a very passionate guy. I'm raw. This is what you get. I'm a fighter. Please vote for me and give me your support. Thank you.
All right, we are going to open it up to questions. Let me just get with the two people that are monitoring the Zoom to exactly work that out for a second. Just bear with me.
Thank you. I do believe the next congressman is in this room. Sorry.
My wife says I'm not out of New York because I'm from Long Island.
Yeah. Well,
Neither are you from Chicago.
well, my wife said that
I
I,
have better pizza than you.
my wife said I lost my New York card already. I'm Floridian.
Knowing you all do that. I'm from Pearl River, North County. And folks in Long Island saying they're from North.
But that's not really New York.
Oh no, I better break this up right now. Okay, so I do want to remind you all, so we're going to open up to questions in the room and online. I want to remind you to address the questions to all the candidates and we'll give each of them time to respond. We're going to ask them to respond in 1 minute or less. And our trusty timekeeper will still be on her job. I feel like the bell might come out this time. And then for our online guests, please raise your hand by going to the reactions button in Zoom and looking for the raise hand button, or just waving a lot, or type it in the chat and we will get your question asked in the room for the candidates. All right, so starting off, do we have any questions in the room? Margie. Hold on.
I want to know how all you scientific people up there are going to clone yourselves into one candidate because you win.
I don't know if that was really a question.
Well, if you don't mind, can I make one statement in regards to that? I'm just going to reiterate what I already said. The next congressman of District 15 is in this room.
Yep. Agree. Okay, do we have a question in the room?
Hi, this is Michael Spangler, and my question is about the Supreme Court. We've seen the Supreme Court, in my estimation, hijack what America believes. What would you do to rein in the Supreme Court?
And I realized that I did not tell you how you were going to reply. So since the microphone's already down here, I'll give it Eddie or Caesar. If you want to go first, go right ahead, and then we can go on down the line.
Well, I think, my interest in being in reform committee, and my other option was ethics. I actually think that we should create law that holds people accountable for what they say to the American people. If they're giving their word under oath, what if I lied under oath? What would happen? Right? I would be committed with perjury. Exactly. So I actually think that perjury should be made a violation, a crime, and then the punishment for that should be impeachment. if they do get confirmed. So basically, basically in a nutshell, your question was how to reel them in by creating rules and laws that would prevent them from saying one thing and doing the complete opposite. Lying to the American people is wrong, no matter at what level, at which branch of government it is.
I think we definitely need to reform the Supreme Court. There's a number of proposals about doing it, expanding the court, a rotating selection of federal judges that come in and out, Supreme Court term limits. I'm partial to expanding the court. This is, we do not need to have 9 justices, and we are seeing they're lying and then taking our fundamental rights away. So I'm in favor of expanding the court or reform of some sort.
Can whoever's online please mute themselves? I think we can hear some background noise. Thank you.
I remember what President Obama said. Don't boo, vote. I remember going back to 2016, the apathy at the election. We didn't think in a million years Donald Trump could be elected president. No. And there were people who, even within our own party, went after Hillary. She was not this, she was not that. Elections have consequences. In this case, it was tragic consequences. Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court nominations. So the answer to the problem with the Supreme Court very simply is getting rid of apathy. Voting in every election all the time.
Thank you, Rob. I think we have little to no chance, the way our government is run now, to rope in or rein in anybody. I think there's the best way to improve the Supreme Court is to make a constitutional amendment. You have 9 justices. You appoint 4 liberals, 4 conservatives, and 1 independent. That way, no party in the future gets to push their party's agenda to ruin women's rights or any other thing that's going to come up. A constitutional convention, you have to get 38 states to approve it. It's got to be passed for the House, the Senate, and go for a constitutional amendment of 38 states. It sounds impossible, but we're always going to have apathy to some degree. We're always going to have bias to some degree. And under the Supreme Court, if we could do this for the future, for the young people that we keep talking about, they'll have a better way of life. Thank you.
I wanted to hear the bell. You were that close to hearing the bell. You were that close. Who remembers Merrick Garland under Obama? You know, and Mitch McConnell was in charge of that. We need to add an amendment mandating that it is required that whoever the president of the United States is, if there is a Supreme Court appointment, it must be held within a certain time period once that nominee has been selected and must be called for a vote. That is number 1 priority. Also, I do not believe the Supreme Court should be a lifetime appointment, because a lot of them, they get lazy once they've been there for so long. They also can have, some of them have mental health issues. Some of them currently there, you know who I'm talking about. And they can be there for as long as they want. So I am open to that discussion as well. But the ultimate one is mandating that whoever the president is has that right. That is their God-given right by the United States of America, and they should be able to appoint a justice and have them called to a vote.
Okay, thanks. I think we do have a question online. I'll get you next.
Hi, everyone. This is questions coming from Luis on the chat. I apologize. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he is wanting to know how each of you are going to be working to reach out and connect with the rural voters in our district, because obviously we have quite a lot of rural voters just outside of the North Tampa area.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go that. Okay. Okay. Well, great question. So I'm a rancher. I have 7 cows, 2 horses. If y'all want to come out and help me sometime, feel free. I will pay for lunch. But I understand the ag community. I understand the importance of the environment, how it affects clean water, clean air, how it'll affect future jobs. And I've been out in the district talking to agriculture communities, and they are concerned about the environment. It's affecting their crops. It's affecting their sales and produce. So this is an important issue. And agriculture, especially out in Polk, when I go out there, one of the biggest issues I hear is the environment, because it is affecting their jobs, their way of life, and how they grew up. You know, so I understand as a rancher, you're concerned about agriculture.
Okay, thank you. I can't believe I could sit up here in front of educated people with educated people online and say to you that the environment in a list of concerns by American voters or voters in general is halfway down the importance list. For whatever reason, I have no idea. Look at what happened in Virginia. There were, environment. It's the biggest issue. Inflation is here. Prices are up. Gas is coming down. The inflation will be gone. We'll have a recession. It'll grow back. Everything will be fine. The environment is still going down the toilet, folks. We don't take care of our farmers. It's a simple fact that we probably won't eat much, and it's all about environment. I mean, look at the rains in Kentucky, what's happening there, and the fires out west, and 95 degrees in London. That's normally 60 degrees and rainy and ugly. I mean, for anybody, yes, we have an environmental issue. Thank you, folks. I already got blocked out once. I'm going to get twice.
The question is, how do you communicate with rural voters? And my answer is what I have always done. My last job in television at ABC7 as managing editor, I did so many shows and programming about the issues involving the rural parts of our area, and the issue involving the water table and the difficulty of agriculture to irrigate the crops, the difficulty of farmers to actually get workers to pick the crops. And not only did I reach out to farmers and people who lived in the community, but I reached out to experts in the field. And I want to apply those skills of communication just like I did when I had my own television show in this modern technological age to communicate with the voters of all types everywhere.
Yeah, I think we can't be presumptive of how rural voters think. We can't fall into stereotypes of what we think that how they're going to vote. We have to do the work. To what Alan says is we have to communicate and we have to be there to listen to them. Everyone's talked about the climate crisis, so important, and whether it's right to repair or any of these issues, it's to be there and to do the work and actually listen. And I talk about finding that creativity, finding ways to talk to folks that are meeting them at their level, no matter what it is. And I think that's a big part of talking to voters who don't have the same background as you.
Honestly, I wouldn't even pretend for 1 second that I know a lot about everything. So the first thing that I'll do is just meet them where they are. Find out what their concerns are. I've been part of a community that has been underrepresented for a very long time. And I know what it's like to be ignored or not to be heard. Voters, whether it's rural, urban, suburban, they want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged. They just want someone that understands that they have concerns. Meet them at what they are and create a robust team around you, of people around you that'll keep them engaged, keep them involved in the process. They need to be stakeholders. They need to know that they have a place in making a decision. Meet them where they are and listen, just listen and acknowledge.
Okay, that was a good question.
You had a question? Yes.
So, Congress currently has an approval rating of like 16%, right? It's like, I think the second most disliked branch of government. It's next to the Supreme Court now. What do you think is causing that? And what would you do when you go there to help re-engage voters and try to break down some of that apathy that's taking place?
So I guess the mic is here. So,
Yes.
so quite honestly, I think that we need to stop villainizing the other side. I think that we need to bring more people to the table. We saw it in Kansas already, how it doesn't matter whether you're left or whether you're right. It's right versus wrong. So I think in Congress, we have to find the things that we can agree on and build from there. There's always going to be things we disagree, but we're coming off a very turbulent time with the previous administration that's done a heck of a job in dividing this country. It's going to take a long time to bring it back together, and it starts with new leadership that's willing to meet people in the middle and bring Republicans and Democrats together on those issues that are really, really important, such as a woman's right to choose.
It's funny when you ask why Congress is so hated, the mind reels because there are so many reasons for why Congress is hated. Everything from corruption to polarization to the toxicity of our politics. All of those need to be addressed. One fundamental tangible thing we can do is pass HR 1, the For the People Act, which addresses gerrymandering, addresses money in politics, because the incentive structures are so broken these days that extremism is what gets money, it gets attention. And when districts are as gerrymandered as there are, you're safe to be, not a district like ours, but in a safe district, red or blue, there's no downside to being extreme and furthering the toxicity. So pass HR 1, For the People Act. And I think to Caesar's point, we have to be folks who are inviting and work with other people. Definitely something I plan on using my skills as an improviser and comedian to do.
Look, Congress has become performance art, and sometimes on both sides. And what I bring to the table here is over the course of my public career is that I have uncovered and fixed problems that were not Democratic problems or Republican problems. They were American problems, whether it's defective parts of military helicopters or going after corrupt politicians, whether they were Republicans or Democrats. We have to show the public that Congress can get things done. And what's crucially important is there are so many people out there who just want to tune out the noise, get their kids to school or practice. And what I try to tell people is that you cannot afford to do that because everything in your life is somehow impacted by government. And if you want government to actually not control your life, but maybe provide and assist, then you have to be engaged. But you also have to see members of Congress who do and not just talk.
Thank you. And I got to stand up. My legs are dead. A real quick word about Kansas, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get so excited about Kansas's vote. That was a total abortion ban. The pregnant woman's life, incest, rape, total abortion ban. That's most likely the reason why that ban was turned down in a red state. So let's not get overly excited and lax. We have to keep going out there, going after Roe v. Wade. Congress is a toxic work environment. Somebody described that 6 months ago in the news. I read it and I enjoyed it because I worked in the Postal Service for 30 years. And I'll tell you what, very few people in this room and nobody in Congress can work 30 days in the Postal Service with the type of environment it has. You may see letter carriers out in the field having a fun time. You go in their office and that's where the office was my battleground. And for 21 years, I'm going to fight for the district and the representatives in this room, as well as online, the United States of America, because we are going to bring the Democratic Party back together. And we're going to see the rise of the Democratic Party and the waning of the Trump Republican Party. because that's the only way this country is going to move forward instead of back to the 1950s.
Well, I'm a history buff, and that really started right after Watergate, when approval started going down, distrust in government when that happened. The only time it's really gone up is when we had a national tragedy like 9/11 or something, but it's always temporary, and then it comes back down. And you know what it is? It's because people are sick and tired of the far right and the far left shouting at each other across the hall when working families are worried about putting meals on the table. That's what they're looking for, compromise. They're sick of backdoor deals that are being done by party leadership, and I'm not excusing either party on that, by the way. But if we're going to restore confidence, we have to start by making sure that our members are held to a certain accountability.
Okay, we have some questions on the chat, so I'll get to you next, Michael. Keith, did they want to unmute, or did you want to come out and say it?
Hello.
Hello. Hey,
Hello.
Sandy, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank all of you gentlemen for coming out in the middle of a rainstorm to see the North Tampa Dems. And North Tampa Dems are so engaged. And as Jen said, within 1 year, we've gone from a handful of people to closing in on 70 people in our area. I'm just a little more pragmatic about things. I'm going to ask if you could consolidate what you've been telling us for the last time that you have. Can you pick the 3 top messages that your campaign is going to focus on? And given the amount of bomb throwing from the Republicans every single election as part of their strategy, how are you planning on counteracting that and reaching out to the Democrats and independents to motivate them? How are you going to counteract those types of Republican bomb throwing strategies on campaigns? Thank you very much.
Okay, so for your first part of your question, my message is fresh new leadership, qualified, winnable, future forward Florida. Bet on Brown. But to your other point, we have a huge number of NPAs in this state, and they are an untapped resource. And a lot of them, it's very hard to decide whether they are leaning more Republican or leaning more Democrat. But again, this is a fault on our party, because we need to reach out to them and open the big tent and tell them who the big tent party is. It is not this crazy Trump Republican Party. The Republican Party is dead and buried. We are the future, and we are the big tent party, and we can bring them in, but we have to go out there and keep them engaged.
Please mute if you're online. Thank you.
It's true what Gavin said about getting the NPAs involved. Traditionally, they break more Republican than Democrat. But what you have to do is not have policies that are going to alienate somebody. So just for argument's sake that, and the issue was whether you wanted to build a wall. You know, you don't come running right out and say, well, I ain't going to build that damn wall. It's stupid. You don't alienate them. You highlight the differences upon yourself. And you know what? I was a paper boy back when kids actually delivered papers. So don't worry about not being 61, Caesar. I'm not 61 or 66. I'm a working class man my whole life, just like everybody else is in this district, unless you're lucky enough to have a real cushy office job, which I've never had. Work the goals, show them the freedoms I'm willing to work and fight hard for to bring that to them and not show any party leadership. My slogan is choose policy, not party. And that means that the Democrats ain't 100% right or wrong, as are the Republicans, neither 100% right or wrong. And that's what I want to bring out to them.
Look,
I think the.
everybody wants an advocate. Okay? Everyone wants an advocate. And that's what I've been doing my entire professional career. I've been advocating for members of the public, for consumers, for veterans. And you could just go to our website and go on YouTube, and it's right there before your eyes. That is what I stand for. And in terms of counteracting, you know, what is coming at us, my gosh, and Patty knows this. I mean, I've gone after the mafia. I've gone after powerful forces who have not liked what I've done for 30 years, and sometimes have threatened me personally and threatened us. And we're used to it. I mean, you know, there's a lot that comes with being an investigative journalist. It's getting things done for the community, but also pissing off the bad guys. So I'm not afraid of anyone.
So in terms of top 3 issues, I've talked about saving democracy, saving the planet, and universal healthcare. So those are still 3 issues that are near and dear to me, and what I'm talking about all the time on the campaign. In terms of fighting back against the bombs that are being lobbed, I think we can't ignore them, right? Because I talked a little bit about this. Republicans know how to win these attention war games. So unless we lob back, unless we find ways to hit them back and to find clever and creative ways to be able to retort against them, then they're just going to hit us, and we're not going to do anything. We can't let that happen. So we have to be able to find ways to address them and fight back.
So the 3 for me is equality, because when you talk about equality, you're talking about equality for women, equality for LGBTQIA, equality for people of color. Equality also consumes criminal justice, right? And being fair from that perspective. The second one to me is education, not only in our education system, which I feel that we could do so much better in. We used to be #1 in the country, but education is important to also combat those misinformations, you know, and educating our community. Now, I coach baseball in a very red district, Polk County, right? And I teach my kids lessons on the field that they could take in real life. Teach them how to be good players, to be good citizens. And I have the parents of those kids who are Republicans, Trump shirts and everything, congratulate me on the win for Biden because they knew how hard I worked. You got to meet people where they are, bring them in, and I believe that that's how you make it happen.
We finally got the bell after all this time. Okay, we have a question back here.
How much time do they got to get the answer?
Same rules apply.
Okay. So my question is, healthcare is a huge issue. It's what flipped districts in 2018. The Affordable Care Act, or what we affectionately some call Obamacare, is the law of the land since 2010. Do you support it? Would you add to it, keep it as it is, give examples, or completely dismantle it and go to a single payer healthcare system such as Medicare for all, like the VA system?
So that's a really good question. I'm a little bit kind of off the rail on it. I believe in competition, but I also believe that Medicare for all, if given the opportunity, will prove to be probably the better option. With regards to Obamacare, I have seen family members of mine, people in my community that actually benefited where they didn't have healthcare before, and now they have healthcare because of Obamacare. So for that in my community, I am thoroughly supportive of that. Can it be improved? Everything can be improved, including members of Congress, and you improve them by getting them out and voting somebody like me in. So I do support Obamacare and what it has done. I believe that there's a path where we could be, And it's just a matter of getting everybody there and moving them slowly. Jumping too fast, too far left will leave a lot of people behind. So the real science is, how do you move the herd together? And a wolf pack, the leader of the wolf is in the back.
One of the first races I worked on when I got to the DNC was John Bell Edwards in 2017, who became the governor of Louisiana. And one of the amazing things about helping elect him as governor was that he was able to expand Medicaid. And it was this moment that even though Obamacare is not perfect, we have come such a long way. And people who did not have healthcare before had it then. And so I'm a fan of Obamacare. I think it absolutely needs to be improved on, whether that's lowering the age of Medicare or covering vision and dental. But that being said, I am a universal healthcare person. Obama said himself, if he could design it from the beginning, it would be a single payer system. So I think that's where we need to get to, but I'm absolutely in favor of pushing along and making people's lives better year after year.
But here's reality. I am for Obamacare. I'm for making it better. And really, one big part of what this election is about is there's not a single Republican running in this race who would not get rid of it. That's what we're fighting for. That's why this election is so important. That's why it's so important to motivate every single Democrat, every single non-affiliated voter who doesn't care about either party to get to the polls and to listen to our message, because we have taken a giant step forward with Obamacare. It is not perfect. It is not finished. It is what we have now. And the alternative, if the Republicans control the Congress again, is that they will go back to trying to repeal it.
And to add to that, please remember the now deceased John McCain coming back in from brain cancer, casting it. Yeah, the thumbs down. Well, they would have repealed and replaced it with what? They still have a what, okay? I'm not in favor of Medicare for all really quickly, not because it's Bernie Sanders' idea. The less government is involved in healthcare, the better off you're going to be. First thing you learn is a letter carriers. Your union can negotiate the best contract in the world, but Congress, with the stroke of a pen, can change everything. And they can do that with Medicare, and that's what Rick Scott's trying to do. I am supportive of lowering Social Security and Medicare Act. Eddie said it, one payer system. If you got 10 insurance companies per state, that's 500. I bet you one company could get a whole lot more people with lower prices. That's why everybody runs off to Sam's on Saturday or Costco or whatever, which I hate all of them. I want to bring back the neighborhood grocery store, the delis that I used to shop in when I was a kid. Those were neighborhoods. But yes, I'm old and I'm passing the mic.
You know, Republicans are really good at saying no. They're really bad at coming up with something else. Obama and Pelosi gave them quite a long time to come up with their own proposal to counter that proposal. What did they bring to the table? Zilch. And you know what? That is the Republican way. Now, I believe that if the collapse had not happened, we would have probably moved towards single health care at some point. I do believe that we have to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. I know a lot of people who had pre-existing conditions that could never get insurance had it not been for that. We have to strengthen that, protect it, but I do see a pathway for us to move at some point to single payer, but we can't do it overnight because that would be a disaster for our healthcare system. It would knock everybody off right away, and it would not be a good situation for healthcare in America.
We're coordinating, sorry. We are it's 8:34, but there are 3 more questions online if you guys are game for answering them. Okay. So the first person, oh, and Keith, can you turn the TV back on? Okay. I think we have Cindy has a question.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I have a question for everyone. Of all your platform, items, which one are you most passionate about?
Fairness to all people, regardless of your income, your sexual orientation, your gender, your race. This country was built on equality. And you know what? We get nothing done unless we fight to protect that, like women's rights, like LGBTQ rights that are still under attack. Now we're turning back to women's rights under attack, but voting rights is also included. We have to look out for our fellow neighbors, our fellow Americans. And, you know, when you're a little kid, you're not taught white or black. You learn that. And we need to preach love, not hate, across the board. So people's rights in America.
I think the one thing I'm most emphatic about is women's rights, women's right to choose. I'm sorry, but I'm sitting looking at half a dozen to a dozen women in this room. What gives me the right to tell any one of them of childbearing age that you don't have a right to choose? Your right is gone because I said so. Well, that's what we have in this country going on right now. And that is, we cannot afford to go backwards. As Gavin said in the beginning, first it's women's reproductive rights. I told Gavin at the first meeting I went to North Dems, that's when they leaked the report out. I said the next thing they'll be going out after is gay marriage. And good old Clarence Thomas came right through and said, hey, next thing we're going for is gay marriage. And they're not going to stop these Republicans. So yes, when I say women's rights, remember how I said earlier, equal rights for women. They should get treated the same respect, the same pay, and have a right to choose what happens to their body.
And it's really two things for me. And the reality is sometimes the times choose the issues. And right now, as I said earlier, my wife and daughter have less rights in America than they did a month ago. And that is the cause of our time. And that, you know, frankly, is a cause that unites not only Democrats, but independents and even Republican women. But as I have often also said, that in many other cases, although we are for the same issues and making a better, fairer, more prosperous country for all of us, our consideration right now is saving the Union. As I said earlier, this is a moment where the United States gave itself a chance to continue its 245-year effort to form a more perfect union, or it's the end. We have to save our country, which is why we have to win this election, which is why we have to keep the majority, and why we have to try to keep the light of justice and not the darkness, which is the alternative which our Republican opponents seek to bring.
He said two things.
I know, deliberately.
I agree with the second thing, protecting our democracy. I talked about that's why I jumped in this race. I shudder to think about this dystopia that I talk about, in which elections no longer matter, and it's the force of the Republicans who just will it into being by getting election officials and secretaries of state elected who can just turn the election however they want. And I think when we lose that, we become an America that I don't think many of us have ever wanted to imagine, an America like an authoritarian state like Viktor Orban or something to that effect, in which we no longer have a democracy and we no longer talk about apathy now. I mean, once we get to that state, people really feeling like their vote no longer matters and all the other issues we care about seem that much more unachievable.
So what are you guys doing about the gun laws? What are you guys doing about Sandy Hook? What are you guys?
Wow, that was a lot right there. So for me, it's a couple of different things, but what moves me, what I find passion for is protecting democracy, protecting the right for our women to be able to choose their own, make their own decision about their own bodies. I've been fighting for democracy. My grandfather fought for democracy in World War II. My father fought for democracy in Vietnam. I enlisted and joined the Army in 95 to 2002 defending democracy. I did it in uniform, and I'm ready to do it again as a congressman. But protecting the rights of our people is so pinnacle. It is so important, and protecting the right to vote and protecting our women to be able to choose equality across the board.
Oh, okay. Michelle's got the next question from online.
Thanks. This question's from Tammy, who's attending via Zoom. Are any of you designated as a gun sense candidate through Everytown and Moms Demand Action?
I didn't hear what you said personally. I'm sorry. Once you get a little close, I'm sorry. You don't have a big mouth like us New Yorkers.
Sorry. This question was, are any of you designated as a gun sense candidate through Everytown and Moms Demand Action? That's the question about the guns.
Well, I'm definitely supportive of everything that Moms Demand Action has done. I actually brought them, for some of you that don't know, I'm also president of the Democratic Hispanic Caucus. In Leadership Blue, I had a panel of key people that focuses on the important issues of our community. I invited Moms Demand Action there to speak about some of the work that they do. I don't believe that weapons of war should be in the streets. My number one concern, and it always has been, is our children, is protecting our children. And the gun violence has gotten so crazy and obscene that I just don't understand why it's taken this long to pass a law that doesn't even go all the way. And I'm concerned about that. So I hope that answers that question.
Yes, I am proudly a gun sets candidate. So was very, very honored to get that distinction recently. And I will just say, yes, assault weapons, weapons of war do not belong on the streets. We need to ban high capacity magazines, universal background checks, and we need to take on the power of the NRA. They still have far too much influence over our politics and absolutely have too much influence over elected officials who are too scared to take real substantive action. I'm glad to see that we moved the ball forward a little bit, but there's a lot further to go and a lot of suffering that we are all watching and people are enduring.
I was proud to have that mantle in 2020, and I will be proud to wear that mantle again. But further than that, we have to talk to our friends and neighbors. You know, Patty and I had a neighbor who moved from here to Parkland, and his son was in the building when it happened. And I know his politics. And I saw him on Facebook afterwards talking about, we've got to do something. And I finally called him and I said, you want to do something, but you're still voting for people who won't. I could assure you Marco Rubio is not for doing something, nor is Rick Scott. And until we could convince folks like that, that if you take other things into consideration when you vote, you are not for addressing whether it's magazines or AR-15s, then we're not going to get where we need to go.
I'm steaming because I got a cramp in my leg.
I've been attending Moms Demand Action over at Jimmy Kill Library the second Thursday. I've had Nicole Watts speak at my Trinity Club meeting. She's going to speak this month at my Central Pasco meeting. I have not got the distinction because I didn't come out and say outwardly that I support a ban on the sale of and distribution of AR-15s. As I said before, if you want an elected official from this district that's a Democrat, that's the number one hot button issue for Republicans. Democrats aren't going to get elected within a Republican district, and this is the experts have this as likely Republican with an upset by a Democrat, and nobody's going to get elected. I'll guarantee it. I'll bet my house on it if you want to take me up for your house. Elected. They should up the age to 25 so these crazy high school kids that just got out of high school and get pissed off at their teachers don't go take the guns to school. And these red flag laws, right? They passed red flag laws. The kid in shot up Parkland was on social media 2 years before laying out exactly what he was going to do 2 years later, and he did it. And people reported him, and nothing happened. There's no follow through. Thank you, my friend.
I don't have the distinction, but I am going to look into that. I am a gun owner, but I'm a responsible gun owner. I went through the proper channels. I went through a thorough background check. I took public safety courses before I got my gun. And I think everybody should have that. If you're a violent criminal or you're on a terrorist watch list, you should not be able to own a gun. AR-15s belong on the battlefield, not in our schools, not in our hospitals, not in our houses of worship. And that's what I believe about the gun issue. On top of that, why are we not discussing with guns having fingerprint technology? You all have it on your iPhones. If you can have that on your iPhone, why can't we have it on a gun so we don't have kids grabbing their parents' guns and accidentally shooting themselves?
Okay, the next question is going to come from Sylvia Adams online. This is the last one for online, and then we can,
Yes.
adjourn
Jen,
if we would like and mingle.
yeah, Jen, I said that you could ask
Sylvia,
the question
can
for
you
me.
speak up, please?
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I was okay with you asking the question, but since you put me on, I will ask about voting rights legislation and what the candidates are prepared to do to move that forward. Because unless we all get the opportunity to vote, then we're not going to be able to bring anything to fruition. So I'd like to hear the candidates speak about that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Look, when it's every American dream when you get to the age to be able to vote. And it should not be an issue of how difficult it is to vote. We see what Georgia is doing right now, where they're trying to mandate it so you can't even hand out bottled water to people waiting in lines. But it's not just a federal issue. We've also got to put pressure on the states, because state by state has their own regulations, own laws. But what we do need to do at a federal level is remind the American people which members support voting rights legislation and which ones don't. Vote them out, work on a compromise. We may not get 100% right out the gate, but you know what? I'd rather get 70% than 0% any day out of the week.
Can I please ask a question?
I'm sorry, what? Oh, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm all in favor of passing John Lewis Voting Rights Act through the House, through the Senate, right up to the President Biden's desk. I hate more than anything else discrimination of any kind, whether it's the LGBTQ community, women, Hispanics, African Americans. And when you couple that all into, those are the people that are getting targeted to make it more difficult to vote, plus the elderly that are in homes, nursing homes, and instead of every 4 years, they can sign up for an absentee ballot. I mean, look at Texas, one drop box a county. That was a hot one. I mean, I'm surprised DeSantis didn't do that. There has to be some uniformity in voting laws. Okay. Voting is a federal issue, and the states can only take what is not a federal issue. Voting is a right that we fought wars over. We fought them to keep our right to vote. We fought them to get the right to vote, and we'll keep the right to vote for everybody. 3 words, ladies and gentlemen: we the people.
Look, there's a war on voting rights, including right here in Florida. We've seen that every day. That's not a doubt. Whether or not we need a new voting rights, the John Lewis, that's only going to have a Democratic majority in the House. And it will only happen if we increase the Democratic majority in the Senate. And that's so crucially important, to nominate a candidate for this contest who could actually win. And the way you do that is you nominate somebody who has been out there fighting the fight and fighting and exposing wrongdoing for so many years, and being able to attract not only the Democrats, independent voters who agree with us on this issue and many others.
So I almost got the bell a few minutes ago talking about the For the People Act. So obviously democracy and voting rights is near and dear to my heart. For the People Act, John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We need federal action to disrupt what Gavin was talking about, which is state malfeasance. And, you know, of course, here in Florida, it's been disgusting. So I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to work to help pass that legislation in Congress. Because again, if we don't have the vote, what do we have?
So real quick, in Polk County, the precincts grew about 5%, and they closed down 30 polling stations since last reported by the supervisor of elections. Guess what neighborhoods those probably impacted? Last cycle, I took my mom to go vote. She asked for a Spanish ballot. They said, no, you got to have an English ballot. They didn't know who I was, a member of that community in the DEC. And I stood there and I listened. She says, no, I want a Spanish ballot. So I stepped up. I said, no, you're going to give her a Spanish ballot. So I understand the importance of this. And I think I said it throughout the night that the first domino is protecting the right to vote, because under this governor, voter protection is voter suppression. And that is the trick in language that they're trying to do and share to my community, the Black and brown community. Voter protection, no, it's voter suppression. So we got to elect a candidate that understands that, because they had firsthand experience in trying to get somebody to be turned away. And that's why voter protection is important. Voter suppression, and I got the bell.
You got the nice digital bell. Okay, that is all for our questions online, and I'm gonna move, unless somebody has a real burning question in the room, I'm gonna say that we adjourn the meeting, adjourn the forum, and we can mingle for as long as you all like and ask the questions to the candidates directly. Thank you all. Thank you, candidates, for being here. Thank everyone that braved the rainstorm and passed on the protest to be here today. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody online. We had over 30 people online at the highest point. And I think we still have about 20 people still hanging in with us. So unfortunately, we couldn't get the TV back on. Sorry about that. But thank you. And I hope we see you all again. And I fully believe that the next congressman is in this room right here.